In this lesson, we are going to continue with our resist theme with our watercolors, but we're going to do an oil resist, and we're going to make it a little bit more controlled with adding some stencils. So I have several different types of oil pastels. If you do not have oil pastels, then you can still use the crayon like we did in a previous lesson, but oil pastels are so amazing. I love them so much. These are a cheap set of Pentel pastels. They're oil. These are not the chalky soft pastels, which I do not love. These are oily. And I'm going to choose a white one. Now I'll just set this aside. These are the Mungio, I think is how you pronounce it, Gallery, and they're artist soft oil pastels, and these are actually amazing. I do have another set of oil pastels by Sennelier that I bought at the Sennelier store in Paris, just because I wanted to, but they're very expensive, so I would recommend starting off with something like these Gallery ones because they give you a lot of the same effect as the expensive professional ones, but they're so much fun. Actually, here is one of my, this one is a Sennelier. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. It's a white one. I got a lot of these at the place across from the Louvre, but I use my white ones a lot because I love blending with them. And so I don't know if this one is Sennelier or the Mungio Gallery, but I'll keep it out. We'll use it. I don't want to use this one. And I'm just going to show you really quick the difference. These are much softer, and that's why it's actually broken off, because when I play around with them, I push really hard. These are harder, so if you just want to play around with some and learn how they interact with different things, then you might want to just get the Pentel oil pastels. But if it's something that you want to actually learn to use and create some beautiful art pieces with, then I suggest getting the Gallery ones from Mungio. And I will link both of those in the description box below. Neither of them are very expensive, so these would be the ones that are closest to professional. So what I'm going to do is take, I've got a whole bunch of different, these are stencils that I've collected over the years, and I'm trying to decide which ones I want to show you. So I will go with these three. We've got, I'll hold it over here up against the desk so you can see it. These are just some random patterns, swirls and flowers. And then these are a little bit more, they're kind of like a fleur-de-lis, but they're not fleur-de-lis. I don't know what they're called. And then these, of course, are like a chevron pattern. So I'm going to move the rest of these off my table. And there's a fleur-de-lis. Here we got that. We won't mess with those though. So with the pastel or the oil resist and the stencil, basically, you just need to hold your stencil down and kind of color in some of these little stencil windows, so to speak. All right, so I'm gonna do, I've done about 6 or 7 or 8, I don't know. I'm an artist, not a mathematician. Let me pull you in just so hopefully you can see that. Right here is where I use the harder one. And then since this one is bigger, I'm just going to turn this sideways. And I'm just coloring in these little chevron shapes. Now, you are definitely going to want to wash your stencils after using the oil pastels on them. And then I will take the same one, because it's in my hand. This one is falling apart. So this kind of has the consistency of a thick icing or frosting once you take the paper off. It will break if you're not careful. So I'm actually just taking my finger and smoothing it in all these little areas. And like I mentioned, you will definitely want to wash your stencil. So as I pull that off, you can see a little bit of design there. And I'm going to get a baby wipe and wipe my fingers. Get this oily residue off. You can also see that the pintail is not exactly white. This one is exactly white, but this one has a little bit of a yellow in it. And it could be because, well, I was thinking maybe I had mixed it with yellow, but it looks like I used the side that I haven't used before. And so I would just say that it doesn't quite have as much pigment in it as well. All right, so now I just want to do basically the same thing that we did with the crayons. You don't have to use stencils. You can just create a fun pattern or a random pattern. So I've got several different pastels going. And now it's time to play around with the resist. So I'm going to grab this magenta. I'm going to just run it through this first one. Actually, it was the third one I did, but it's the first one I'm choosing. And in fact, I don't want to use my good, I don't know why I'm just going randomly with my good watercolor brush. You would want to use a cheaper brush because the oils, I will have to go very quickly and rinse this out just to get the oils out of the bristles. We don't want it staying in there. So I'm going to add a lot of the color to my brush, and you can see how that is resisting. Now let's get some of this cerulean blue. We're going to drag it over this pattern here. So you can see that there is a little bit in the pattern on top of the white pastels, but it's definitely resisting. All right, let's grab some green. Let's spray my palette down a bit. I'm just dragging my brush over the paper. It's totally resisting the green. And then I will use an orange for this one. I'm using just random colors that will show up for you so that you can see the resist better. You can use any color you want. In fact, a black oil pastel, using that as the resist is so gorgeous. So you might want to play around with using different colors and combining the colors. So what I'm going to do is just take my colors. These won't be pretty. They might muddy each other up. But I'm going to go ahead, kind of finish out the paper that doesn't have any oil on it. But basically just play around with how different oil pastels resist your watercolors. If you have some stencils lying around, grab them, use them. This is process art, and you just play around with the different techniques, creating your own beautiful works of art or even not so beautiful works of art. But the whole point is to just create and enjoy the process.